Hello, welcome to our final online live Q&A with Shorts Program 4, titled Before Midnight Part 2. And the reason why it's called Before Midnight, because I consider this program kind of like a midnight program, but in our in-person screenings, we didn't get the midnight slot. So it's kind of like a play on that. But all of these films are so unique and authentic, and I feel like they just all defy their genre, whether it's like horror or comedy or just, a little drama. Like, I just feel that all of these films are just unique in themselves and so great. So I'm so happy to have most of the filmmakers from the program here. Before we get started, I just want to give a shout out to our sponsors, Neon Heart Productions, Noise Floor, Prism Studios, and High Creative. And we're fiscally sponsored by IFA Chicago. Our moderator happens to be a good friend of mine. Her name is Ashley Shelton. She is an actress and an amazing filmmaker. You have probably seen her on some things. I recently saw her in A Little Prayer that premiered at Sundance this year, and I love her character. So I love seeing Ashley on screen. She's directed a short called Magnolia and Clementine, and she's going to be having her feature debut coming out this summer, Best Clowns. And I'm just so excited to just screen it and interview her and her team about it. But I'm going to go away now and let everybody speak about or have a conversation about their films. And I'll come in at the end to say goodbye.
Thank you, Rebecca. I'm so excited to be here with the filmmakers and one of the actresses of the shorts that screened in this block. I was a huge fan of all of these films, and Rebecca's right, they kind of define genre. And I think we'll just jump into it. My first kind of question I want to ask all of you, and we'll go through one by one and you guys can answer, but I think most of the films in this block touched on an exploration of self, whether that's through introspectively or through another person or through a relationship, and also a little bit of coming of age. So I wanted to ask if that was an inspiration behind your films, and if not, was there a different inspiration for your idea that was sparked? But I do feel like there was kind of a thread line of self-discovery through all of the characters and the narratives of these films. But I'll open it up to you guys. So first ones on my screen are Anna Rosa, and if you guys want to talk about The Mark.
Hi, yes. I'm Sophia.
Sophia, yes.
Hi. I think for me, I think most people my age, of my generation, struggle with bullying, especially age of technology. I think it was a really fun project to explore those wounds, explore maybe fantasies, revenge fantasy type of themes. And doing that through art is, I think, really powerful. And that's what, we want to do as artists, is explore these things and topics.
I'll just add to that, like we were talking about what the personal element versus like what we're trying to say. And I think like a lot of what we're here because of Deborah Kampmeyer. She's the director of the film, and she gave us these opportunities. She happens to be Sophia's mother. But she, a thing she says a lot is she's looking to create new myths around women's experiences. And I think there is something, even though our story is a little bit scary and like extreme,
high stakes.
The point being, like, there are different ways in which we can like tell our stories or engage with our painful pasts. So that's just what Deborah would say maybe if she were here.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a great answer. And next we'll go to the Babyface director, Sana, if you want to take it away.
Hi, I'm Sana. I'm the director and co-writer of Babyface. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot of self-discovery involved with, especially in that age, like focusing on what it is to be a teenage girl. I think I started with the idea of sisterhood at its core, you know, wanting to explore those dynamics. I think if you don't have a sister, it's kind of a complicated relationship to understand, because you're kind of always balancing this like fine line between jealousy and admiration, especially like in your teenage years. And when you're so close in age and you're like in this contained environment together for however many years. And I think speaking as like a younger sibling, there's this aspect of idolization and like wanting to be included in everything, especially like youth is just like such an isolating time, and you're just trying to figure out who you are, like where your place is in the world. And for the younger sister especially, I think it's you kind of the only thing you know is like following your older sister's path. But I think this idea of like longing and self-discovery definitely applies to both sisters, because like the whole thing, it's really just about them looking past their own differences and their own desires to just really see what's behind the surface, and like see each other for who they are outside of just, you know, your sister, and just like outside of that home environment.
Yes, for sure. Okay, we're going to keep it rolling. And Melanie, the director, writer, and star of Spanko, correct?
That is correct. Thank you. Hi, everybody. I'm Melanie, and I'm all the things Ashley just said. Spanko is about a repressed second grade teacher who finally explores her taboo fetish. So even in the logline, there is an inherent narrative of self-exploration. And specifically in the short film, I really wanted to highlight a few elements that I don't often see, which is a femme body exploring their sexuality, and it making them become more whole. And that is something that I also intend to explore in the feature length version, which is very much about that main character coming into her voice as a direct result of exploring her sexuality, which has absolutely been true for me. I think in our society, in our puritanical American culture, many of us, it's not totally true for across the board, but we're taught to fragment ourselves. And what I'm seeking to do in my work is to bring it together into whole personhood, that our sexuality is just as much a part of us as every other role that we play in society.
Yes, I love that. And then Annika with, go ahead. She is the director of Helium.
Yes. So Helium is a double date, and it takes place between reality and a fantasy world that two best friends inhabit. So in terms of finding oneself, I would say that this film does that through the mirror of a friend. And I mean, the whole kind of conception was the writer, Sophie, and I talked about, you know, we were dating in New York, and like sometimes the most fun part of the date was talking about it with your friends afterwards. And so that was kind of the impetus of it. But I would say through the mirror of someone else, and how that can ground you and take you to another place, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. That's why I touched on the self-discovery, because I'm like, well, they're discovering themselves through
Absolutely
their relationship a little bit. So
yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So I have individual questions for each of you for your film. So I'll go ahead and ask those. And we'll start out with Ana Rosa and Sophia about The Mark. So I know Deborah directed The Mark, but she's a fan of a strong female protagonist, as you guys were saying. And that's also my favorite genre of film, is a strong female protagonist that sometimes is not very likable. but there's also depth to that character, which I feel is an important theme in the Mark, because she's somewhat justified in her actions a little bit. Like you were saying, it's a tough time bullying and going through that in adolescence and then dealing with it in adulthood. So I just wanted to ask kind of you guys to speak to that notion. And since we do have the lead actress here, she can kind of speak to her process of maybe finding that. Did she think she was justified in what happened in the film, and just kind of the through line of playing a true female protagonist and having that be the story, because she's not doing very, very likable things.
Yes. Well, coming from years of acting training, we've been told over and over, always never see your character as the bad guy, even if they're doing bad things. Always see your character as having justifiable reactions and actions. And yeah, I mean, because of layers of wounds, which honestly, at this point in my life, I don't have the bandwidth to really like look into. I'm like here trying to pursue acting, got to be confident as an actress, can't let these old wounds and old things hold you down. Yeah. But it was so fun revisiting that and expressing that in such an extreme way as this character, and doing things that I would never do, but getting to do them in the container of art was super exciting and super fun. And yeah.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think she answered it. I think it just speaks to we don't get to see a lot of strong female protagonists on screen that are not just the nurse or the mom or doing the right thing. So it's nice and it's refreshing.
And I gotta admit, it is so fun playing the bad guy.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. I want to see more women doing that. I want to see more unlikable characters, but also justified in a way. There's some redemption a little bit.
A little bit. Yeah. And I think the thing that we liked too was that the story sort of says, like, she practiced her witchcraft because she thought that's what they were doing. Yes. And so it's what she thinks the girls who were bullying her were doing back when they were preteen age. And there's something about taking something that's painful and creating something powerful out of it. Like that's a real through line in all of Deborah's work, I think. Yeah. And we were just like, oh yeah, she does it too. Like, even though we had Deborah didn't write this, it was written by a person named Jack Warren who did a great job. And like, but we thought, oh, this is still something that is like a thing Deborah revisits. So that felt cool.
Yeah. I also loved it because it felt like it could have been made in the 90s, but it also felt modern. Like it could have been made today. And I love, it's like a great combo of both those things. It's like a true horror element. You have all the elements of the lore and the horror. And then there's some modern, there's a little bit of modern to it too. So I feel like it's a timeless piece is what I'm trying to say. So very well done.
We were hoping for that. Thank you so much.
Yeah. So next, Babyface, I want to ask Sana about, I loved your film. I wanted to ask you, so the sisters, I know you touched on that when for what I asked you before, because that is a very important element to your script. And not a lot of people know about the complex relationship that sisters can have, especially if you don't have a sister or you're an only child. And I want you to touch on that, but I also wanted to ask, they're two totally polar opposites, people and looks and vibes. And I loved that. I wanted to know more about that. And did you intentionally cast these two complete polar opposites? Did it go into your production design, your color story, the look of the film? Because I noticed, at the beginning you have the pink butterfly and the blue butterfly. And I noticed all those things and I appreciated them because you're very much giving life to these two complex sisters. So I wanted to know that.
Yeah, there was definitely a lot of thought into, production design, costume, hair make, like the type, like which costume they wore at the Halloween party. And I had a fantastic production designer, Katerina, who I went to school with. And she took care of, wardrobe and all of that. But it was really important to, get there. I'm a very visual person, and I have like a production designing background as well. So that's all like extremely important to me, like establishing, what their colors are. In the beginning, it's luxe, it's pink and blue, baby pink and blue. And then, I mean, I even kind of came in at the end, like the end credits is kind of this amalgamation of the two colors, like them finally coming together. But yeah, that was all very important. And in the casting process, I think a lot of the heavy lifting comes in casting, obviously. Obviously, like, we rehearsed, but I like to put a lot of trust into my actors, and I like to see where their personality shines through and what they're able to bring to the characters with their own experiences. And Sophia, I casted actually because I saw her in a short film the summer before that actually, I believe, premiered at Cinema Femme like a couple of years ago. And I did a little Insta stalking and figured out that she was going to school in Boston. Like she was starting that year. She's like a child prodigy. But so I like very creepily Insta DM'd her and was like, hey, I have this project and I kind of think you'd be perfect for it. If you want to audition, let me know. Hope this isn't weird. So I started with her and I was kind of like, if she's in, like she's Lux, like that's it, no questions asked. But when we were casting Eden, I was very aware of, the visual appearance. Like, do they look like sisters? Like they had to look similar enough where they can pass as sisters, but also wanted to make sure there was like this stark difference between them. So it was kind of ended up being perfect that Eden, who was played by Lo, had blonde hair. And so it was kind of a very obvious difference between the two. But yeah, it was really important for me to explore both of their point of views because, like I said, like I don't want to antagonize either of the sisters, even though they both have their, their good and bad moments. But because I think it's kind of easy to forget that, your sister or someone in your family is like their own person with their own struggles. Like, sometimes it can get really harsh, but, for sisters, I think you don't really have to, explain or apologize or anything like that. So yeah, I think that time specifically to like exploring teenage girlhood, I think everything feels so like important and world shattering especially like when you're young. So they were just perfect for the roles. And yeah, I'm very glad you noticed all of those like pretty like design.
Yeah, it's one of the first things I noticed about your film, and I was like, oh wow, the production design speaks to these two characters, and so it was great.
I'm glad it came through.
Yeah. It amplified the story. So for sure. That's my dog growling. You can't hear that. But yes, okay, so let's keep on moving. Melanie with the film Spanko. He loved your film.
He's actually my target audience, so thank you so much for saying that.
No, so I loved your film as well. I loved all these films. I'm going to say that every single time. But your film had a sense of obviously big self-discovery. But the question I did want to ask you is her career in the film. She's a teacher. And I was wondering if that was an intentional decision. Is that just something you stumbled upon because of the juxtaposition of her being a teacher and dealing with innocence and children becoming themselves in a way, especially at the kind of age she was teaching at, is kind of like a pivotal age, I would think. And then she's also blossoming and figuring things out about herself as well. So it's a coming of age story in a way for her. And yeah, so I was wondering about the teacher element and if you thought about that or your mindset there. Sure.
Yeah. This is one of those questions that's like a portal to many thought threads. So I'm taking, I don't know. Let's see what adventure we go on as a group today down this rabbit hole. First, I just name something, which is, this is my first all femme. I'm non-binary, but I also identify as woman. This is my first all like women Q&A. And I often feel very uncomfortable actually talking about the subject matter of my film. I'm not the only person who feels in a femme body that it is unsafe to talk about sexuality in public spaces. And that's something I've been navigating throughout the run of the film. And I was just sitting here noticing like the pleasure, joy, and relaxation of just being in this little YouTube group with you all and how I feel really safe. So thank you. I really believe
that was of the utmost importance that we all feel safe and we can all share whatever we want to share about your film. So
thank you. Yeah. So I'm trying, like, there's, as I said, as a filmmaker, I know like every question opens up like 7 portals because we're considering everything from multiple angles. So maybe most practical and least interesting, in the feature film version, the main character, a big part of her journey is that she's not a teacher, but she's stuck at a dead-end job at her childhood private Jewish day school, like working in office admin. So there's this like stunted, suffocated quality of her needing to like break out. As far as the way the short film goes, I am a teacher in real life. I was a teacher while making that film. It was shot at a school that I've taught at. Thank God. Thank you, Silver Lake JCC. And you really picked, so by nature, like the short film had to have that school element because that's such a major component of the feature. But what you spoke, when you spoke to that innocence part, that's really an apt perception of my feeling about my sexuality. Having grown up, I have like, I'll do a little bit of sex education. That my mom is actually a sex therapist and her people don't even know about my subset community. So I'll do like a little, like I'll touch on that a bit. I come from this sub kink community, many call themselves spankos, where a lot of us have had these same developmental markers of looking up the word spanking in the dictionary when we were little, catching a spanking on the show I Love Lucy and then like obsessively going back to it. And literally like our sexuality develops completely differently than the rest of everybody else we know. And even more specifically and differently than the more, dare I say, mainstream or the broader BDSM community. For those who don't know, that means bondage, discipline, sadomasochism. It's an umbrella term for kink. So I have this, like what Jillian Keenan, who is a thinker and speaker outer for the this subset community, calls an innate, innate, unchosen, lifelong, like sexual fetish or something like that. And because of that aspect of my sexuality that was really different from the other 12-year-olds I was around and what I was thinking about compared to them, I do feel that my sexuality does come from like the most innocent place inside me, which is a part of the reason why as I grew up, I found the shaming of female sexuality to be so goddamn perplexing. Like I just didn't understand why they were telling us to like put it away or we're evoking it by just like existing, when the things that turn me on like come from like truly the most like pure and innocent place inside me. And I feel like having that experience gave me more empathy for other kinds of people that have things about them that they didn't choose that make them different. So long answer, thank you.
No, that was a great answer, because just to touch on that, like you saying, it comes from the most innocent place. And I think the career that she has in the short film is fantastic way of, I mean, you made the film, it's you know, it's purely you. So I love that answer. That's great. And it's an amazing film. And I love when she, not to ruin it for people who haven't seen it, but when she's in the bathtub, like I started tearing up, because that's something, you know, like women do deal with a lot of shame. Women and it really anyone, not just women, but deal with shame surrounding sex, and especially depending on how you were brought up. So I think your film's really important.
Thank you. I want to add one little blip.
Please.
A big part of the journey you said with the adults and the kids is we can't have empathy for others if we're not having empathy for ourselves. We can't help others with their shame and their differences if we're not owning the things that make us feel ashamed. And that is a big part of like that lineage story in the film.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you. Okay. Annika, Helium, next up. I'm going to say it again. I loved your film. So I love watching a film exploring female friendships because I feel like it's often not portrayed on screen. The complexities of a platonic female friendship.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask, when they kind of disassociate and kind of with each other, what made you choose the space in which you brought that to life? Like, it's kind of a clown party balloon. And then also the name Helium, I was going to ask you that as well. Does that correspond to kind of the world that they disassociate together in? And why did you choose that? And is helium kind of like it's obviously a metaphor, or what I thought to be a metaphor for the masks we put on for other people, and then we kind of take them off when we're with that person that gets us. But so
I mean, initially when Sophie and I were talking about the script, we had this idea of the double date. She had created that structure, but then we thought, like, could we put things kind of like metaphor in it?
Rebecca said we're getting close to time, but if everybody's cool, we can continue discussing and everything. We definitely, yes, we want to hear from you. So you take it away.
For sure. But yeah, I mean, initially we were like, what could be the furthest form of like getting ready for a date or not wanting to be in a date? Like when they're getting ready, could they be like 1950s housewives and like be putting on a makeup? I don't know. But then we kind of landed in this more ambiguous space with this metaphor. And yeah, absolutely. They're putting on makeup at the beginning. They're taking it off. It's quite drastic makeup. And it is all metaphor for what is happening. And I think the space is beautiful. The space is aesthetically, for me, somewhere where I would want to be, somewhere where I feel like a lot of femme pleasure in that space. And so I feel like that being their escape world creates a space where they both want to be and both enjoy being. So yeah, that's the extended metaphor. And helium, yeah, exactly kind of what you said. I mean, there's a lot of different ways you can look at that title, but filling up a balloon and how we have it pop at the end. So we blow up a balloon at the beginning, we have it pop at the end. What's inside this balloon, getting ready for a date, all of it like blowing up. So I'm like speaking like a poet, like I'm doing poetry right now. But yeah. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, and I love it. It's so original to put a face to a character going somewhere else, I guess. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but I just thought it's just such an interesting choice, and it's something to explore because, when you're at a party and you're there with someone and it is kind of all blowing up, you lock eyes with that person and you're like, go to your own place. And so, yeah, I loved that. I thought it was just really great. I loved the imagery. I loved the absurdist element to exploring something that's kind of simple and everyone knows and everyone has felt. Also, your male character was hilarious. The door scene with
mostly improvised.
He's
hilarious.
Yeah.
But
I loved it, so it's great. Rebecca says we're getting close to time, but since everyone's kind of cool, I would love for you all to quickly answer this question that we have from the audience. It's a great question. So I'm going to read it, and then you guys can each go through and answer it. But each of your films in their own particular way represent a form of cinema that we don't see nearly enough in the current cinema landscape. In what ways do you hope to see the industry change in the years to come, and particularly in light of the latest writer's strike? So whoever wants to take it away first can go.
I mean, I'll say something. I feel like the sets that I've been on for my past 3 short films have been less of a hierarchy. And I feel, because I work with mostly femme people on set, and I feel like more of that, what would be the word, democratization of a set, less hierarchical structures in terms of the set. I think that can be incredibly productive. So that's something that I would say.
I think definitely pulling away from the toxic, this is basic, the toxic masculinity, male gaze bullshit, and more into the divine femininity gaze of things, and of art and of humanity would be what I would say.
I'm rooting for the strike to address the disparity of things. Obviously, people with the condensation of wealth and power, and we know who has it, and they don't look like us, and they especially don't look like, you know, more women of color who I know are represented in our festival, but you know, all of these, we're talking to each other, so you know what I mean. But I think that I look forward to the success of the strike, and if it means more unions striking with them, then let's do it and address that disparity.
Yeah, I 100% agree with everything everyone is saying. I think for us, our core team was all women. So that really like set the tone for how we were going to run the set, how, you know, creating a safe space for everyone. Especially, you know, we're dealing with some heavier topics and, you know, some level of intimacy. So just making sure everyone is taken care of, everyone is fed and not going to pass out, hopefully. Yeah. And then in terms of the genre, I think people tend to take teenage girls not so seriously and don't take their you know, their issues like seriously, or they don't treat them like they're real just because they're so contained in that era. But hopefully the industry is open to a lot more truthful stories about young women and women of color as well. That's definitely something that's very important to me and that I want to continue exploring.
I'm heated, so I'm a little bit scared I'm about to like be in trouble and I need to take a breath. But I have a lot to say and I'm gonna not say it all because that's a different YouTube. Agree. First of all, agree. This is why I started. I started as an actress in LA. Was told to lose weight, said fuck you. Sorry, I really had to do that. Became a filmmaker. Already was a playwright, already had a voice. What I've learned in my last 8 years of making film is, yes, we need to be making our own sets. Yes, my set also was a safer space, femme queer set that was like absolutely divine, and that's the dream, and that's what people like Ava DuVernay are starting to nurture. But I think the number one thing that independent film needs specifically, which is different from what's going on with the WGA, I don't know about you, mine was not a union film. We need resources and we need distribution outlets that make sense. So those of you out there who are listening, whether you are in the industry or not, think about how you can be, if you want to see a change, think about how you can be supporting independent filmmakers, help us raise our funds, support things like Seed and Spark, run by Emily Best. And those people who are seeking to not just affirm the status quo, people like Naomi McDougall-Jones, who just came out with a big study about the distribution model of independent film. Because even for those of us who can, we're making our sets, we're doing our things, but then where's our next money coming from? And then even if we get into the big festival, when's our next film being made? And how does it even translate into a TV show if there's not even money there? How are we sustaining? And that's my number one question as an independent filmmaker. How are we sustaining ourselves and each other, and to enable us to shape the industry? Because if we don't have the resources, it's not going to keep happening. Thank you.
Yes. A round of applause. That's a fabulous way to end this Q&A, because absolutely. I have nothing to add. I'm just trying to be like, yeah, I have nothing to add. You hit the nail on the head. That's yes, absolutely. But that is our time for today, ladies. So thank you so much for being here and answering my questions, and for having the courage and bravery to share your stories and do your films. I know it's hard to make a film. I know what it takes. And I just want to commend all of you and congratulate all of you on your beautiful work and your films. And please keep telling stories, because I need them and the world needs them. So thank you all. And I'm going to send it back to Rebecca now.
So I am floored. This has been, I don't want to say it's the best discussion out of all of them, because they've all been amazing, but this one, no, I'm just kidding. I love how you guys engage with everything. So thank you, like Ashley said, for opening yourself up. I appreciate it. So yeah, I'm just coming to say thank you for being amazing, and thank you for joining us, and thank you, Ashley, for moderating. And just to let you know what's coming up, tomorrow is our last in-person screenings for this program and Shorts Program 3. And I'm so excited just how this community continues to grow. And I really do think you all putting your work into the universe is making a difference and will continue to make a difference. And I'm just empowered by that. So thank you. And yeah, I'll see you for some of you tomorrow.